Today I'll be discussing my experience of implementing ICT into my curriculum and pedagogy within a classroom setting. The class that I'll be referencing is a Year 10 Visual Communication and Design class.
Audio Jungle.
The session was designed to address a number of curriculum items. VCAA Key Knowledge and Skill Descriptors of Knowledge. Students explore their knowledge and understanding of visual communication and design practices as both designers and audiences. ICT capabilities was addressed through the element of protecting with ICT, that students understand the purpose of copyright legislation and intellectual property right, and understand the ways in which people can protect their work from being copied without permission. In addition to this, scope and sequence was addressed through the lens of respond and interpret. Students were required to identify and describe the use of methods, media, materials, design elements and design principles in visual communications from different historical, social and cultural contexts.
Audio Jungle.
The purpose of my lesson was to ensure students understood the notion of copyright within the art world. Specifically, what constitutes copyright, why the laws exist, what the ramifications of plagiarism are, ranging from personal concerns to corporate impacts. In addition to this, students were provided an insight into protecting and managing their data and information as part of the protect element of ICT. This expands on the segment of visual communication curriculum outlining that students should investigate the work and practices of a range of Australian and international designers from different times, places and cultures. The class began with a combination of illicit teaching and collaborative open class discussion incorporating two key practice principles for excellence in teaching and learning, Principle 7 and Principle 8. Principle 7, which is evidence-based strategies to drive professional practice improvement, were reflected within the class task of assessing and exploring real-world examples of copyright and discussing the real-world ramifications of its prevalence within the art world. As an additional perspective, an emotive environmental image was used. The unauthorised use of this image by well-meaning environmental advocates challenged students to explore and debate the ethics of copying image, balancing intent over consequence. Principle 8, which is global citizenship fostered through real-world contexts for learning, was reflected by prompting students to understand and appreciate what it means to practice ethically as artists within their own artistic careers. This was explored via the means of having students arrive at their own conclusions as to how they would be affected if their own art piece was copied or appropriated.
Audio Jungle.
Following on from this open class discussion, students were required to utilise Google Image Search as a means in which to locate appropriations and copyright infringements of logos within today's society. The specific search we ran was through the logo Starbucks, whereby students were requested to drag the Starbucks logo into the image search of Google and find similar images. After having found these images, students were asked to place them onto a collaborative Padlet board whereby students would be able to see the sheer quantity of appropriations and copyright infringements of the Starbucks logo. The purpose of implementing this ICT methodology was to not only describe and illustrate to students the amount of appropriations of a particular logo that can occur, but also illustrate to them the means in which they can determine and locate appropriations and copyright infringements of their own artwork within their future commercial usages. By the end of the session, my students were required to have understood how to locate a brand appropriation using ICT resources, specifically Google Image Search. They were also to understand how to create a collaborative image board using Padlet. In addition to this, the students were required to understand the problems with brand and copyright infringement and appropriation. The key hits principle relevant to this aspect of the lesson was multiple exposures, which is underpinned by the academic literature by both Robert Marzano and John Hattie, which indicates that repeated exposures via various different lenses to a particular subject can deeply affect the manner in which students absorb the information being provided to them.
Audio Jungle.
The means in which I assessed their learning was through formative assessment in the form of the open class discussion and a brief handout at the close of class, whereby students were requested to answer questions specific to brand appropriation and what they learnt with respect to their collaborative learning within the Padlet board. In addition to this, students were required to briefly summarise what they believed the problems with brand copyright infringement and appropriation were. One of the key strengths of this lesson approach and the incorporation of ICT is that I was able to make engaging and interactive what was otherwise a reasonably dry topic within the curriculum of visual communication and design. One of the key realisations that I made as a result of the exercise was the importance of effectively monitoring and managing my time, ensuring that the time spent on different activities is actively monitored. Retrospectively, I felt as though I was trying to teach too much within the time allocation provided. A primary strength of this class was that, leveraging my understanding of the theory surrounding Hattie's literature around multiple exposures,
Audio Jungle.
as well as authentic learning styles, improved engagement within the classroom. Conversely, a key weakness which I noted was that the integration of ICT and approaching the topic from multiple angles was perhaps less efficient than communicating the key skills through illicit teaching methodologies.